Ben Wallfisch has done the music to a film that could be very big in the Oscar race this year because it addresses the very sensitive race issue that is paramount to the Oscars and to America right now. And this is the story of about three African American women in history that we didn't know much about, did we?
That's right.
Tell us.
Well, first of all, I should say I was really honored to co-score this with Hans Zimmer and Pharrell Williams.
Yes, and the movie's called Hidden Figures.
And it's an extraordinary story. Like you say, not many people know this amazing woman, Katherine Johnson, who's African-American lady who I think is in her 90s now. Last year, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Barack Obama. But prior to that, not many people knew her story, and she was pivotal in the really early NASA missions. She's a mathematician. She was a kind of savant child, could do unbelievable algorithmic calculations in her head at a very early age. And in the early 60s, before the advent of computers as we know them, it was all down to human beings doing calculations on paper using pretty primitive equipment to calculate the trajectories of these flights. And she was on this team, and amazingly, it was just a completely unknown group of African-American women who just figured out this unbelievably complex math that was required for those early missions. And later on, you know, her personal calculations were responsible for the rescue mission of Apollo 13. It's a very pivotal part of that rescue mission. So this movie tells that story with incredible heart. It's a beautiful, very emotional, very uplifting movie. That from a musical standpoint, we were faced with all kinds of challenges to try and bring it to life, you know, giving it being, because, you know, math is the hero in many ways, and somehow Ted Melfi, the director, achieves that without it being stuffy, without it being intellectual. He does that with a real, like I say, with a real heart. And kind of, what does that sound like musically? You know, there are so many things you can do in music to incorporate math, but it's so easy to fall into that trap of, you know, motoric patterns that are very repetitive, or, you know, being too intellectual. And actually, one of the things Hans was always talking about from the beginning is that the math should dance. That there should be an almost sort of irreverent nature to this incredible genius that all these women had. And so that was one of the challenges, and Catherine's theme, which was one of the first things we developed, is this very simple piano motif. But every time you hear it, you realize it's changing its form ever so slightly. It's always slightly asymmetrical. It never quite repeats its structure at the same time every time you hear it. And you know that, like, math is a living thing, and so that was one of the things we managed to. And you know, in movie music, it's so important that everything you do, you're not sort of telegraphing it to the audience. You're not sort of shining a spotlight. You want it to be very much in the subtext, so that, you know, the audience feel it and experience it, rather than, you know, get distracted by it and taken out of the dialogue or the larger story.
80% of this movie, I was keeping, that's my own calculation, of the film has musical score to it, and it's so complicated. There's one scene where there are at least 8 different kinds of music that are interwoven just within microseconds. Some of it is choral, some of it is symphonic, some of it is one of the rocket scenes early on in the movie. I was paying attention to this because I wanted to see if I could catch you in a pattern. And one of the rocket scenes is the rocket takes off to a drum beat sound, drum machine sound. Bum, 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 bum. So you really feel the energy of it. The next one, when John Glenn is tossed into space, you use choral music. You use this is the Vienna Boys Choir or something. It was an absolutely interesting choice of. Why did you make that choice? It works.
Well, I mean, it's very interesting you bring up the choral element, because I would say the other big challenge we had was, how do we really imbue this score with an African-American sensibility in the music? And we tried all kinds of things, and the thing which stuck was gospel music. And it's this incredible thing that gospel does through often really simple harmonies, and you know, very pure arrangements. When I say pure, I mean sort of unembellished. There's a sort of immediate emotional directness to that style of music. And one of the things we did very early on in the process of just, you know, through lots of discussion, Hans Farrell and myself, was listen to all this gospel music and figure out what those chords were and how to actually imbue the score with that harmonic sensibility. And that's kind of where the idea of using choir came from. And Kirk Franklin, who's this incredible choral arranger, choral director in Texas, he has a choir over there, kind of genius guy. We sent him these, kind of demos with strings and orchestral, and we knew there should be choir, but we weren't entirely sure how it was going to come out. And we just let him kind of go crazy, and he sent back these extraordinary choral arrangements, which we just found beautifully meshed with the orchestral things. And often, because what was so important was the sense of authenticity in this score. It was a beautifully kind of collaborative effort. We had Herbie Hancock play the piano solos. We had some incredible, just amazing singers to perform the solos. And, it was just one of those extraordinary sort of creative melting pot situations I was really lucky to be a part of.
So with Hans Zimmer, Pharrell, and you, how did things get decided if you all disagreed? Who pulled rank?
Well, it was amazing. There was this a real sense of love throughout the process because the movie.
We don't want to hear about the love.
No,
we
no,
hear about
it's
the
like
fights.
the love of the film and the sort of the feeling like if it, we were always led by what was right for this movie and the sense of what's right for these women. And Pharrell in particular was this incredible advocate for the sense of femininity and the power of these women to come to the fore. And I think it was just that incredible process where whenever one of us, had a core idea, it would be examined by the other two and try. And there was this kind of process of bouncing ideas off each other so that the final product we knew was going to, somehow have all of our personalities somehow contained and do right by the movie. So it was just a sort of incredible process of, really challenging to somehow get that synergy of ideas. But I think that the movie was always going to be our guide as to what was the right move.